Hello and welcome to the Raw podcast brought to you by the Sunderland Echo. My name's James Copley and I'm joined by my mate Phil Smith, and we'll be reacting to the interesting game that was Sunderland 1, Al-Shabab 0 over in Dubai. Phil, from the camera recording to the scuffle that broke out, it was an interesting time of it, wasn't it?
One normal day of Sunderland AFC. It will never, ever happen. Yes, very surreal. I actually thought it was an all right game for a friendly. I did think it was sort of a decent level opposition technically. Slightly surreal to see Ever Banega, formerly of Sevilla, just sort of strutting about and playing little chip passes. And I thought Sunderland were pretty good in that sense. And I suppose when the dust settles, there's probably a lot of positives to take in terms of the intensity and also some of the performances and what have you. But so we spoke at length yesterday, and we don't probably need to go over it that we weren't particularly comfortable with the game happening in the first place, which I think we'd both stand by. And obviously, it wasn't a great stream, to put it mildly. And obviously a slightly farcical end when it nearly got abandoned with sort of 15 minutes to go. So I think pause for thought. Obviously, Juan Sartori and Kirill Dreyfus were out there. Hopefully, a few things for them to sort of think about and reflect on, because I can see why it might be a useful exercise football-wise moving forward, but that all-round it wasn't great. I think I'm being fair in saying that.
The very same Eva Banega that Gus Poyet was famously desperate to bring to Sunderland. I think summer 2014, or was it the January? I can't quite remember, but he was high up on the shopping list, wasn't he?
Was it Poyet or was it Moyes?
Hang on, I've got it up here. I've googled it. Poyet, yeah, Poyet it was.
Was it?
It might have been a long-term target.
It might come back round. That I'd sort of forgotten about that. Well, he looked a good player, so that was a good idea. Whoever
probably about
came
30, 37 though now, is he? I don't know how old he is. I'm gonna have a look. How old is Eva Banega? This is what we all want to know, isn't it? Really, this is what we tuned into the podcast for. He's 34. He still looked all right, to be fair.
Yeah, he was genuinely really good. Yeah.
I felt for Danny Collins and Frankie Francis having to apologise repeatedly for the cameraman who looked like he was sort of recording on an iPhone on a plinth that wouldn't cover half of the pitch. So it made analysing Patrick Roberts' performance in the first half, who was playing off the right of Sunderland's attack, pretty difficult.
Yeah, I thought Try Hume had a good game, but I couldn't swear to it because I couldn't really see him. But when the ball sort of went there and you couldn't see what was going on, it seemed to be dealt with pretty well. So I think I can praise Trey Hume's performance, but I'm not 100% sure. But no, it's obviously not great because fans obviously paid $750, which isn't cheap at all, and it's not good. And sort of rightly, it was apologised for in the stream. As I say, I don't think it was a good episode really. And like I say, I think probably a few lessons to learn, and we can chat a bit about the football now. But yeah, certainly not a great episode, I didn't think.
We seemed to like a friendly drama. We had the Mourinho 09 thing against Roma. We had the lights go out against Rangers. And then we've had this in Dubai against Al-Shabab, a sort of fight breaking out in the middle of the pitch. Gooch was involved. Yaku was involved. I'm sort of typing away furiously. Then I looked up and Juan Sartori was in the centre circle. I was sort of, what on earth is going on here? But yeah, another interesting episode in the cult following of Sunderland Football Club.
Yeah, to be fair, obviously, I'm not really sure there was much to blame with Sunderland with that one, really.
I did think that Al-Shabab's tackles, some of them during the game, were pretty robust, shall we say.
There was an absolutely disgraceful challenge on Ahmad in the first half.
This is a challenge.
There should have been red carded. That was absolutely horrendous. And it was fortunate that Ahmad got away with an injury. Obviously, the melee started when Sirkin put in what was a pretty robust challenge, to be fair. But then obviously Gooch went to sort of remonstrate with the referee, and I think from nowhere really ended up in a scrap. I didn't think that was necessarily his fault. So, slightly farcical. A lot to reflect on all round. Yeah. But
No,
also some interesting stuff on the football side of things as well, I did think as well in the end.
yeah, absolutely. Nobody likes to see it, but we all secretly love to see it on occasion. But yes, the football felt sort of first start 11 in the first half, and then it changed a lot in the second half. But then there was, Barr coming back in, Hume coming back in the second half. So it was a bit of a mismatch, really, a bit of a jumble. What did you make of the football? For me, Ahmad looked sensational in parts without even really being in first gear. He's just a cut above, isn't he? And it's easy to see why Man United spent upwards of 30 million on him, because he's just brilliant.
Yeah, he's very rare talent that you don't see very often. I thought he was excellent, really. Like you say, I don't think he was operating at full tilt. I don't think any player was, sort of understandably, but those little moments of quality really stood out. It was one of those brilliant goals where you kind of think that he's probably taken too long and that maybe he's sort of overthought it. Should he have got a shot away earlier? But of course, he's in complete control and just a lovely little dink over the keeper. I thought his almost assist for Ella Sims was even better, to be honest, because he picked up the ball. He was only a few yards in front of Sunderland's own box, and he turns it into a clear-cut chance, which Sims will know that he probably should have scored. And I suppose the interesting dynamic of it is that Tony Mowbray spoke to us after the Birmingham game about how it was a really big decision to leave Patrick Roberts out the side because he rates Roberts so highly. Obviously, I think something he would like to do in the long term is get them both on the same side. And we saw there this evening that it's something that can work. Ahmad plays sort of more as a number 10, drifted over to the right, teamed up with Roberts. When you get it right, that's pretty hard to stop. We know it didn't work against Cardiff, which is the flip side of it, but there were a lot of issues, I think, in that game. A really exciting prospect, but obviously, that means then potentially you don't have a place for Alex Pritchard, who I think everyone would agree has broadly had a really good season. So that's one of the interesting sort of selection dilemmas, I think, coming out of not just this evening, but throwing forward to the next few weeks. What I would say is, I don't think there's any way you could not pick Ahmad for the next game. And you've got to give him credit because, a month ago we were sort of not knew he had the talent, but it was where does he fit? Well, the question is, it doesn't matter. You've got to make him fit. You've got to pick him. He deserves a lot of credit, really, because it's not just his talent; it's the physical output he's putting as well. Another really good sort of outing for him. He's exciting.
Yeah, he's a great footballer. Just on Pritchard, Phil, I was having a conversation with somebody on Twitter whose name escapes me, so I do apologise. We were talking about Pritchard, and he reckoned that Pritchard could play a little bit further back, maybe, sort of. And I tended to agree with him, really, because he does battle back really well from the 10 role, and he gets stuck in, and he gets his foot in. He's obviously got quality on the ball. Do you think he could play maybe a little bit deeper, or is he best as a 10?
I think he's best as a 10. I think he could play a little bit deeper. I think it's something we're going to have to get used to in terms of Mowbray, and it's something that I certainly welcome. Is likes versatility in his forward plays. Really, you saw Embleton there playing off the left and just sort of picking up a bit of a free roll. Really unlucky. I mean, classic Embleton. Hits the post with one gorgeous effort on his left foot and then hits the underside of the bar with his right foot. Should have had a goal. But yeah, I mean, Pritchard could do that. I think you could certainly play as one of the two in a 4-3-3. But you wouldn't want him playing any deeper than that. So, I mean, obviously, it's a real positive because where we're now getting to is that Mowbray's got options to change the game from the bench, whether it's a Roberts or a Pritchard or a Ahmad. Bringing these players on, if we think back to the first 3 or 4 games of the season, where what we were all saying was, there's a really good starting 11 here that is competitive at this level, but we were seeing them kind of almost get overrun in the last 20 minutes of games consistently because Alex Neil didn't really have the option to make subs. And hopefully, touch wood, moving into the second half of the season, that's going to be something that changes considerably.
Big positives on the injury front as well, with Sirkin back, Gooch back, Huggins playing again. It's all starting, and Alessi, of course. Alexi was the big name back into the side. It's all starting to look quite nice. Although Stewart and Ballard just quite aren't ready yet.
Yeah, I don't think there was any major surprise with Ballard because Mowbray pretty much said he didn't think he'd be ready for Millwall. I don't think there's any sort of issues there because he has been doing some of the training this week, but clearly he's not quite ready yet. So it looks like it'll be a bit later in the month. Stewart, I think there still could be a chance that he's involved next Saturday. I don't think him not playing tonight means it's been a setback or anything like that. I suppose it just underlines, Mowbray said before the break that we'd have to be pretty careful with Stewart, and like Sims, it'll be a case of phasing him back in. He's not just going to be able to play 90 minutes at his best from day one. So I think that probably just underlines that. And obviously the other slight disappointment one, hopefully we'll hear at some point, but obviously no Mishu.
Yeah.
Obviously picked up an injury in the Luton game just when he looked like he was really kicking on. He has been training this week, so he's obviously on the comeback trail. But yeah, a bit of a shame that he couldn't get any minutes, I think. You would think that makes it quite difficult for him to challenge for the Millwall game, but we'll wait and see on that one.
That Millwall game, of course, coming in the Championship on the 3rd of December. What happens now for Sunderland and the squad? A little bit of time to sort of unwind in Dubai and then back home to England?
Yeah, I think there'll probably be some sort of recovery sessions as well before they come back to England. And then it'll be sort of a normal free week heading into next week's game. Yeah, it's going to be really interesting next weekend and sort of, well, not just next weekend, the next few weeks, because I think there's a lot of sort of interesting stuff from Mowbray. We talked about sort of the Elise and Sirkin dilemma on yesterday's pod. You know, we talked a bit about Adam Roberts there. Jim Matete, I thought was really good again. If I'm sort of taking the last month, I saw him having a really good game alongside Barr in the under-21s against Newcastle. I think he's done pretty well when he's been asked to come off the bench to help us see games out. Looked a real threat today, didn't he? He was just sort of picking the ball up and carrying it 20, 30 yards, no bother. You know, I'm not saying he's going to start next Saturday necessarily, but I think something's starting to sort of really emerge there, and I think he's starting to really ask questions of Mowbray. So that was another key positive. Yeah, it feels pretty optimistic about the general picture. You know, it's just a shame about some of the other stuff with this game that we've sort of talked about at length and reflected on, because I think there was a lot of stuff that wasn't up to scratch. No,
absolutely. Jim Matete, yeah, I agree, was very good. Interesting that Diaku sort of played through the middle again, and he did exactly what you were saying on the last podcast. He got into some really, really good positions, and it was just his finishing let him down. There's something there. I'm adamant there's something there.
There definitely is, and like I say, he has a habit of being in the right place and sort of getting in those areas where chances can come, whether he's playing out wide or up front. It's very, 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 very rare that you look back on a game and say, "Oh, Diaky was anonymous." There always seems to be a chance or an opening at the moment. He just can't quite convert it, and that obviously makes it very difficult for forces within the team. But yeah, I mean, literally, it was what we spoke about yesterday, wasn't it? People can go back and listen to it because we spoke about it at length. There's definitely something there, but it's just not dropping at the minute.
Indeed. Well, you can read all about Sunderland's game against Al-Shabab over on the Sunderland Echo website. We are also on YouTube, TikTok, Twitter and Facebook. Phil, once again, thank you for joining us, and thank you to the listener for tuning in to the Raw podcast.